how do you get a team to be a high-performing one? There's several things that you need to do along the way. But let's start off talking about being a great leader, a great situational leader. So we're going to talk about situational leadership. Situational leadership is a term coined by Hersey and Blanchard, and their model is called the Situational Leadership Model. I want to talk about this model before we go any further. As a leader, it is very important that you understand people have different ways they think and act and perceive the world around them. For that reason, you cannot afford to be a one-way leader. In other words, you cannot afford to lead in just one way. This model gives you a palette, if you will, for leadership, depending on the people that you are working with. We have two axes here. We have the y-axis, as you can see, which is supportive behavior. And on the x-axis, we have directive behavior. So think about it like this. If you were working with an individual that doesn't know what to do as well as other people, in fact, if you were comparing them on a continuum, you would say that they have low competence. They may have high commitment, but they are not able to do the work as well as others because they may be new. We refer to them as being in this D1 quadrant. Low competence, high commitment. Eager beavers. Think about someone out of high school that's so ready to do anything it takes to show that they can do the job. They're eager, high commitment, but they don't have the experience. They fall into this directing quadrant. And it's not just people out of high school. This could be anyone. Someone new to the job. Eager beaver, doesn't know how to do the work. You may have to be rather directive with them. And on a continuum, this is going to vary how directive you need to be depending on how much help they need. Okay? So if you're working with someone that has low competence but high commitment, you could focus squarely on giving them a whole lot of direction. Not as much support, because they may not need it. They're already quite confident in themselves, and what you need to do is direct them. Okay. So when we say directive behavior, we're talking about the extent to which you, the leader, tells the follower what to do and how to do it, where it needs to be done and when it needs to be completed. When we talk about the relationship or the supportive behavior, we're talking about the extent to which the leader engages in open dialogue with the follower, the extent to which they actively listen and provide recognition and reinforcement for task-related progress. So you could say this first quadrant is a directing style of leadership. You see the word directing right there, or guiding. This style is characterized by the leader using moderate to high amounts of task behavior and moderate to low amounts of relationship behavior. The leader makes decisions surrounding the timely completion of the task and provides the follower with the benefit of his or her experience in that regard. The flow of communication is from the leader to the follower. Questions posed by the leader are typically focused on clarity. Do you have any questions on the instructions we've just reviewed? You could say that this style, the directive style, is a short-term approach intended to create movement. It may be seen by some as being a little bit aggressive, but if done the right way, it wouldn't come across as that. It's getting traction for action. It aligns with followers who have limited, if any, experience or skill performing the task in question, and for whatever reason, they're either insecure or unmotivated to try. This style, though, requires close supervision by the leader for the express purpose of identifying any signs of incremental progress to be recognized by the leader in an effort to accelerate ongoing development. Now let's go out and take a look at the grand scheme. So we've talked about S1. Let's talk about S2. Again, you can see that this is called the coaching style. It's also referred to sometimes as the selling style. So this describes a leadership approach that is high on both task and relationship behavior. You can see it's right there, high in supportive and high in directive. The leader still maintains decision rights regarding what the follower needs to be doing, how they should be doing it, and when it needs to be completed. But the structure is provided in combination with ample opportunity for a discussion of why the task is important and where it fits into the grand scheme of things. The leader also actively recognizes enthusiasm, interest, and commitment of the follower for learning and gaining task-related experience. If we zoom in here to this S2 quadrant descriptor here we have low middling competence, low commitment. So this tells you one of our goals in S2 is to up the ante on the person's disposition to the task and their confidence. Okay. It's intended to create buy-in and understanding, and it aligns with followers who have limited, if any, experience performing the task, but exude confidence and motivation towards the process of a leader-driven skill development. Like style 1, effective use of this approach depends on direct observations by the leader. So you can see, in all honesty, the level of direction is expected to be less, which is why you have this curve showing you that we expect to have people at this level show a little bit more than people in S1. So like style 1, the effective use depends on direct observations. It's meant to be used as a guide, not a cookie cutter. Even though you've got 4 options in these quadrants, you still need to be flexible in your approach to it. You could have someone who's an S2 for certain tasks, but is in an S1 situation for others, or someone who is purely S4, does not need a single bit extra to do stuff, but in some other instances falls into an S1. And that's okay. Let's talk about S3, participating, facilitating, or collaborating. Style 3, also referred to as the participating style or supporting, is fundamentally different from styles 1 and 2 in that it is follower driven as opposed to leader driven, and as such it depicts an approach that is high on relationship behavior but low on task behavior, as you can see, right? In that context, and from the leader's perspective, the follower has the ability to perform the task in question at a sustained and acceptable level, but lacks maybe the confidence or the motivation or commitment to do so. This person doesn't need a whole lot of direction, as you can see, which is why they're here on the x-axis. But what they could do with is a whole lot of encouragement and a whole lot of support. That's the general idea. If the follower is regressing, for example, they are aware that they can effectively perform, but they've lost commitment in some instances. If the follower is developing, he or she might have demonstrated task proficiency, but it's like that job where you still have a little bit of trepidation. You've been for training, you understand the subject matter, but you still got that niggling feeling in you that you don't know. That's like the imposter syndrome, if you will. But either way, the leader needs to discuss the follower's willingness by asking open-ended questions intended to help the follower recognize the source of performance challenge and generate a viable solution. And one of the ways managers do this for folks in this quadrant is they prop supports around them. That's why we call it supporting. They prop supportive individuals who may be team members around them to generate that level of confidence and comfort. So the summary of S3 is you could find yourself here in a new position. You've been in the company for a while, you know all the nuts and bolts of the firm, you've been for training for the new position, but you don't have enough confidence. Let's go to S4. S4 is called the delegating quadrant. So a delegating leadership style is another follower-driven leadership approach that is characterized by low amounts of both task and relationship behavior. The follower can perform the task at a sustained and acceptable level and is both confident and motivated to do so. So if we take a closer look at D4 here, we can see high competence and high commitment is what these people have. The enthusiastic beginner. You can see with labels here for these different quadrants, the individuals who are talked about in these quadrants. So D4 is great for the enthusiastic beginner. High level of competence and high commitment. The intent of S4, let's zoom out, is to create or enhance task mastery and autonomy. It aligns with followers that have significant experience performing the task at or above expectation. In combination with a level of intrinsic motivation, that means they are motivated from within. That drives their ongoing commitment to excellence. The flow of communication in this quadrant in style 4 is from the follower to the leader, and it's typically initiated by questions from the leader that feature significant degrees of freedom. An example would be, from your perspective, what is working and what do we need to consider doing differently moving forward? So my friends, to have a high-performing team, if you're a project manager, I want to encourage you to, first of all, think about your people. Think about the task at hand and begin to ask, which quadrant do I need to employ for this task and this individual? Let me say that again. It's really, how do I see this task and the individual who has been assigned to the task? Do I see a high level of competence? Do I see a high level of confidence? If there's low competence and low confidence, then you know what you need to do. You need to up the ante and get into the coaching mode. If the person has a low level of confidence and a high level of competence, then you know you're in the supporting quadrant. This is how you need to think, all right? If you need to rewatch it, I want to encourage you, go back, watch it again, and everything is going to make a lot more sense. But the summary is, as a leader, you need to be ready to be situational. A great leader understands that not everyone is the same. We could be diverse in how we process the world around us. We could be diverse in how we think, how we solve problems, and how we act.